If you want your business to grow, you need to understand your numbers. And I'm not talking about just the numbers that an accountant will give you or your revenue, net profit, and gross profit. Okay? I'm talking about cash indicators. Now, this is a framework that we've created that'll help you to understand how healthy your business actually is. So, just to get started, who am I? There was a nice picture of me with a bunch of entrepreneurs here, but it is not loading. But my name is Graham Singh. I'm the founder of G-Team Academy, and we have over 45 entrepreneurs in our academy. Our clients in total are making over $250,000 in MRR, and our clients grow their revenue on average by 23%. Imagine if over the course of a year you were growing your revenue by 23% every single month. Yeah, imagine how much more money you could make in your business. That's essentially what our coaching clients get with the services that we provide, through helping them to make better decisions and utilize their time more effectively. So, getting into today's thing is going to be around the cash indicators. Now, at the end of this video, I'm actually going to tell you about a document that I have that will tell you how you can calculate and where you can actually fill this information in, because it might be a little bit difficult for you to do this off the top of your head. So at the end of the video, I'll tell you a little bit more about that. So if you're worried about writing things down, don't worry about that at the end. Now, I'm going to start off and just get right into it with the first one, which is C. And this is customer economics. Okay. So when we're looking at a business, we want to understand on the base level, right, what is actually going on with your customers and how are they actually making you money? Not how do we think they're making us money because, someone's paying you and you're like, okay, great, I've got money. It's like, no, we actually need to understand a little bit more technically what's going on with that money that comes into the business. So these are the metrics that we need to understand. The first one is the cost to acquire a customer. So let's say you market your business and you're running an ad campaign, let's say, and if I spend £100 on ads and close one customer, my CAC, or my cost to acquire a customer, is £100. Okay? Very simple, very straightforward. It can be a little bit difficult to calculate sometimes. Like, for example, if you're networking, there might not be a necessary CAC related to the business because you're like, oh, well, I didn't actually spend anything to network. But it might be your time that you have to consider. And it's your time and your hourly rate that you might want to consider as your CAC at that point. But it's important that you understand what it actually requires for you to acquire a customer. The other thing is, I know that some people that will be watching this video will be using referrals. Like, they'll be getting word of mouth and they'll be going through that. And it's like, okay, well, what's my CAC for that? It's like, well, realistically, nothing. Unless you've got a referral scheme where it's like, someone gets a bonus. Like, that would be the cost. Like if you give someone a £25 gift card for referring you to someone else, that would be your CAC. Okay. However, one thing that I would say is that if you're only growing through referrals and only growing through word of mouth, sometimes I think that it can be a little bit difficult to understand how you can grow. So unless you're really clear on the rate of growth, unless you're really clear on how regularly people are referring to you, unless you've got a big customer base, right? Like I'm talking 100 to 500, you need to have a good base of customers to be able to predictably say how quickly you're going to grow. I think that it's important that you try and figure out what your CAC would be. If you were to market, if you were to advertise, how much would it cost you to go and get a customer? Because that's probably what you might have to do to grow sometimes. Okay, so that's the first thing, cost to acquire a customer. Next thing is lifetime value. So this is the total amount a customer will pay you on average, right? So across your clients, what's the average that someone will pay you over the entirety that they interact with your business? So let's say I have one customer that pays me £50 a month and they stay with me for 20 months, so 50 times 20, that'll give me the total amount that they pay me, which would be £1,000. Okay, so the LTV is £1,000. Now, if I have 10 customers and some of them are paying me 50, some of them are paying me 100, some of them are paying me 25, I would need to figure out what the total LTV for all of these customers is and then do an average of these customers. Yeah, unless you can segment them into different situations of I've got let's say coaching clients, they generally pay me as £5,000 as the LTV. I've got community clients, they generally pay me £1,000 LTV. So I can categorize the LTVs based on the types of customers that you have. I would recommend trying to minimize the type of customers you have, especially early stage, just so it's easy for you to understand the maths on this as well. So this is the LTV, and it's really important for you to be able to say okay, how much does each customer actually pay me? Once you know that, the next thing you need to do is cost of delivery. And this is how much it costs you to deliver for the customer, right? Really, really advanced, really difficult things to understand. I understand, right? I think the maths is a little bit more complicated, but just to give you another example, let's say if I take on a new customer that And every new customer that I take on, I've got to incur like £15 a month in like software costs or like whatever, like extra like things for the business. Like that is my delivery cost for over 20 months, and that's going to be a total of 300. So it's 15 times the time that they stay, and then that's 300. Yeah. So that's cost of delivery. Then what you want to do is figure out your LTGP. Okay. So this is lifetime gross profit. Now, if a customer pays you £1,000, so let's say we're sticking with the same example, if they pay you £1,000 over the lifetime and it costs you £300 to deliver, and it also costs £100 to acquire them, your LTGP is £600, right? LTGP is really important because a lot of the time people see like, oh, it costs me £100 to acquire a customer, and my cost of delivery is £300, and the LTV is £1,000. So it's like, okay, well, I'm making good money because each customer is paying me £1,000. But sometimes you'll find that people's cost to acquire a customer might be like £500, and the cost of delivery might be £600. But they think they're getting a good deal because they're getting £1,000 from them. But realistically, it's not a good deal because you're losing £100 for every customer that you get on. So understanding how much it costs to acquire a customer and understanding how much it costs to deliver for a customer is going to be really important for you to understand your gross profit, your lifetime gross profit. One of the other numbers that is often referred to a lot in business now is the ratio between your cost to acquire a customer and your cost and your lifetime gross profit. Okay, so what this looks like is you take £100 and you do that in a ratio of to the 600, so that's a 1-to-6 ratio, right? Or 6-to-1 ratio. Sorry, it should be lifetime gross profit first. So it's a 6-to-1 ratio between your lifetime gross profit and your cost to acquire a customer. That is a good ratio, right? You want to have a ratio, generally speaking, over 3-to-1 plus, yeah? So 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5-to-1 onwards, that's great. But if it's less than 3-to-1, what often happens is that you don't really have enough profit to like fuel and grow the business. So it's really important to get this number right, like the ratio right, so you can start to understand like how I'm actually going to scale what I'm doing. Now, next we're going to be moving on to A for asset efficiency. And asset efficiency, your assets will vary in terms of the type of business that you're in. But it's important that you understand like what your assets actually are, right? So for example, if I'm a landlord, my asset might be the space that I have, like the number of tenants I can hold, okay? And I might need to go and get more properties so I can, get more tenants in. I might have a gym and my gym has got a limited number of capacity because of the amount of people in there. I might have a child minding company and I've got staff that are running the child like they're actually doing things in terms of like taking care of the children, and I can only take on so many children depending on the number of staff that I have, right? These are your assets that you have to consider. And you can look at assets on different levels. You can look at them, let's say if you use a child minding company, if you look at it on the staff side of things, that could be your assets. Or you could look at it on the property side of things and think, okay, I've only got one property for actually running my child minding business, and you get another property, right? Like there's different levels that you can look at assets on. It's up to you how you want to interpret it in terms of the current constraint of the business, right? Now, the first thing that we're going to look at in asset efficiency is capacity. So this is the total number of people or total number of customers your staff or systems can actually handle, okay? So for example, if I have 3 staff and each member of staff can take on 10 coaching clients, I have a capacity of 30, yeah? Like that's it. Really simple, but it's important to know these numbers, okay? A lot of the time, if you don't know your numbers, you don't even know what the next thing is going to be for you to scale. Like you might be sitting there thinking, oh, I need to expand, I need to get this new location, I need to do this. It's like, well, your staff aren't even at capacity, so why do you need to like do that until they're at capacity yet? So understand your capacity firstly, right? Second thing is capacity percentage. So this is actually the amount of capacity that's filled. So if your total capacity is 30, let's say, and you have 25 clients, then 25 out of 30 times 100 to get a percentage is 83%. Yeah. So you're 83% capacity. Maybe when you're at 90% capacity, you're like, okay, that's when I need to start looking at my next hire. And it makes it easier for you to understand. Like from a systems point of view, when I'm at this stage, then I need to do this. When I'm at that stage, then I need to do this. Until you've got these kind of basic fundamentals down, you're always going to be running around thinking like, what am I doing? Like, where's my head at? What's the next thing that I should be focused on? Because you don't understand these basic numbers, right? And you don't understand when you should be looking to increase your assets, okay? The last thing is going to be strategic time allocation. Now, this one is a big one, especially for founders, which is a lot of the people that I speak to, okay? And this is your split in terms of how you spend your time focused on the business, which is like growth, strategy, implementation, in relation to in the business, which is like the day-to-day operations of just like actually running the business. So for example, if I'm talking about myself and I spent 2 out of 5 days working on the business, right? So I'm not getting sucked into the day-to-day. I'm not thinking about like how I'm going to actually focus on delivering for coaching clients or anything like that. I'm just focusing on like building our marketing, building our sales, improving our operations. That's me working on the business, yeah? If I'm doing that for 2 out of 5 days, 2 out of 5 times 100 is 40%, yeah? You can also do this from an hourly basis. So let's say you're working 40 hours a week. If you're doing 40 hours a week and, 5 of those 40 hours is focused on working on the business, your STA, your strategic time allocation, is going to be 12.5%. Okay, so it's just as simple as that. Like just take the amount of time that you're working on the business and divide it by the total amount of time that you're working, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. If there's any questions about this as well, definitely let me know in the comments. But we're going to move on to the next thing, which is S, which is scalability, right? These are some important scalability factors and numbers that I just think are really crucial for you to be able to know if you want to actually see where your business is going to go and how, like, if it's got legs, right? So the first thing is revenue growth rate. I really like looking at this number because it tells me, like, are you on track to start growing your business? And this is just, it measures a percentage increase in revenue over a specific period. We typically look at it monthly because it can change so rapidly. And for example, if I made £10,000 last month and then I made £12,000 this month, I've grown my revenue by 20%. There's softwares out there like Profitwell. Profitwell is a really, really good software, completely free to use. And if you're using Stripe, which is what we use, you can just put your data in there, and it'll literally just like calculate all these things for you, which is so helpful. Yeah. So if you're not a mathsy person and you don't know like what the hell I'm talking about, and you're struggling to calculate things, you don't want to sit down and calculate a lot of these things, they're all done for you. A lot of them are done for you in Profitwell. So go and check that out. The next thing is operating leverage. So let's say, again, this is like the proportion of operational costs in relation to revenue. So if basically I'm making £10,000 a month and I'm spending £8,000 on software costs and staff, my operating leverage is going to be 10,000 divided by 8,000. Yeah, so it's the revenue divided by the costs for operating the business. Yeah, and that's 1.25. That's not a very high operating leverage. You can see that clearly from this. You want to have like I think like 3 is a good number in terms of like operating leverage. If you're below 3, it's like your operations are costing a lot. So you really need to either push sales or you need to make your product more profitable. Because at the moment, like with the way that things are looking, like it's going to be really difficult for you to scale something that's got such a high operational cost with such low margins. Yeah. So you need to be able to market it better, or you need to be able to decrease your operational costs. Yeah. So hopefully that makes sense. Next thing is viable asset acquisition. So this is one of the important things as well. When people are looking to actually scale, they're thinking about, oh, I want to hire this next staff member. I want to maybe get a new location. I want to do all these different things. It's like, okay, but what would actually be the minimum amount of revenue that would demand you actually needing to do the next thing? For example, if you're thinking about a staff member, like hiring a new staff member, that's going to cost you £20,000 a month to hire. Sorry, £20,000, £2,000 a month to hire. And let's say you've got a gross profit margin on that staff member of 20%. It means that you know that you want to have at least £2,500 in additional revenue. Yeah, like it makes it easy for you to understand what position do I need to be in before I go and invest in the next thing that's going to help me to scale. If you're going to go and buy a new location, don't buy a new location when you don't have the money for it, and don't buy a new location when you're not sure if it's going to work. Make sure you understand what's actually required for you to go and buy the new location, buy that new member of staff, whatever it's going to be that you're going to invest in. Figure out what the cost is going to be, and then think about what the next thing is. So like this is the asset acquisition, right? Like we want to think about in terms of scaling. Let's say your path to scaling is going to be hiring more and more staff. It's like you need to know what it costs you to bring on staff and how much money you want to be making, like how much profit you want to be making before you take on any more staff. Yeah. So viable asset acquisition. Yeah. So this is going to vary massively business to business because your assets are going to be different and the costs are going to be different. But it's just sitting down and just figuring out what that looks like. Like most people don't do it, and then I know I made this mistake when I hired my first employee. I was not sitting down really clearly thinking about what is the viable asset acquisition, and it actually almost made the whole business inviable because I didn't sit down and think about this stuff. So which is why I'm so passionate about like telling other people that if you're trying to grow, if you're trying to scale and trying to add more assets to the business, actually think about what costs am I going to incur when I do bring on this asset, and is it worth it, and what position do I want to be on if I'm going to take on this asset. Yeah, hopefully this makes sense. Yeah. Then the last thing, really really simple but more nice, is happiness. Okay, now this one is your firstly it's your NPS or C.A.S.H scores, which is like essentially how likely a customer is to recommend your business. Now if you don't use NPS or anything like that, I would recommend it because they are very strict. Like they're not that like, typically when you get reviews like 5 stars at 5 stars whatever, right? NPS scores are a lot more like, it's a lot harder to rank highly on an NPS score essentially, but it gives you a better indication of where your business is at. It's actually like more critical and more honest feedback, which is often what you need to grow your business. Okay, so firstly, like this measures how likely people are to actually recommend your business to others, and it's just something that's important for you to know. Yeah. The next thing is testimonials per month. We're quite big on this because let's say I have a company and it has 10 reviews that are all 5 stars, or I've got another company and that's 100 reviews and it's 4.8 stars. Just because it's 100 reviews, I'm more likely to go for the second one, right? So just getting more and more testimonials is pretty much always a good thing, especially if you're getting good testimonials. So make sure that you're on it when it comes to actually gathering testimonials. Not only do we collect testimonials on Trustpilot, but we also collect video testimonials. So please do take the time to do that as well, because it makes things a lot easier. And then makes things a lot easier in terms of sales, yeah? Like being able to sell to someone when you've got someone else talking about exactly their experience, like it's going to make things so much smoother for you. You can put them on your website, you can use it as content, like it's really, really helpful to have them. But yeah, sorry. The last thing is going to be delivery metrics. Now this one is important and it's custom, which is a little bit different, right? The reason why it's custom is because when it comes to delivering, your business and the metrics that it impacts is going to be different to my business, right? So for example, for me, I'm a business coach. The most important metric that I need to track and keep on top of is revenue. I need to make sure that my clients are making more money month on month. And they are, right? So it's great because I can then tell people, I can market that. I can see, well, my customers generally are going to be pretty happy because they are making more and more money each month, right? Great. Now, for you, let's say you've got a software business and your software business is helping people to book more meetings. If they're booking more and more meetings and you can check this data, then it's going to be so much easier for you to sell that and see if your customers are actually going to be happy. But if you don't track data around like the things that your customers are actually looking for, like the actual tangible results that they want from you, then it's going to be really hard for you to understand. Like it's going to be really hard for you to understand how you can scale it. Sorry. Yeah. So try and figure out what are the metrics, what are the numbers that your customers want to see change, right? And I'm not just talking from a business to business point of view, but even like there's some things which are like intangible, right? Like let's say I'm selling a bottle, right? Like this isn't influencing any metric. I'm not going to ask the person that buys my bottle to go and like track how much water they have and then send me a message about it, whatever, right? It might be that if I sell a bottle, my success metric is how likely is that person to come by and buy another one of my products, right? It might be the same for a few different businesses like that, which is like, it's not really to impact the number. It's more so to actually take the experience and have them buy it again. So that's your success metric. How likely is it for people to come back? How likely is it for people to refer? Like what's my referral rate at the moment? I don't know what it's going to be, right? But think about that. What is the metric that you want your customers to do? And then start tracking that. Make that something that's important. If you've got a team, incentivize that. Tell people like, hey, if we hit this, then everyone's going to get a bonus. If we get, like for me, if all of our clients increase their revenue on average by 50% this month, great. Everyone on my team gets a bonus, whatever it's going to be, right? Because then people are going to be like, oh, that thing's really important. I'm going to try and focus on that. And they're going to try and push that thing. If it is the amount of testimonials you get a month, hey, if we get 50 testimonials this month, then we're going to get this thing. Great. Let's push for testimonials. we have to push these guys to, like, if you've got a team, even if it's just you, you've got to incentivize yourself or your team to actually do the things, like track the data and actually care about it. Yeah, because sometimes, especially if you've got a team, they don't care about the data, right? Like, why does it affect them? They're getting paid, they're picking up a salary, right? If you can start to make it something that is important to them, it's going to take off the pressure off your shoulders to be like, oh, I've got to go and get all these testimonials every month. I've got to go and make sure that I'm tracking all this data. It's like, no, your staff will start to do that themselves, right? You could even have it for your staff. Like, you could even have it for your customers. Sorry, I know it's getting a little bit off topic, but it's very helpful advice. If I say like, oh, I'm worried about like testimonials, like, I keep forgetting to get testimonials. I don't ask people. If you say to your customers, hey, if you do testimony for me, I'll send you £25, just cash, whatever, gift card, whatever, right? People are then going to take responsibility on themselves to be like, oh yeah, I'll give a testimonial. Oh yeah, where do I need to do it? Like, they'll then take the lead, right? Same with like delivery metrics, like and tracking, and be like, let's say I'm working with a business coaching client, and I'm like, hey mate, if I get you to 50%, like let's say 30% increase in your revenue this month. If we increase your revenue by 30% this month, I'm going to come down, we're going to have an in-person strategy day, blah, blah, blah. And then they're going to be like, oh, well, I want to track my revenue. I want to make sure that I'm actually doing things. I want to talk to G about my revenue. And it's like, you can actually flip the script sometimes and get these metrics tracked for you when you actually go and like incentivize the right people for it in the right way. So hopefully this makes sense in terms of like, what are the key cash indicators that when I'm looking at a business and I'm thinking like, how's this actually going to scale? How's it going to grow? These are the things that I want to look at, right? This is the stuff that is really important. Now, if you do have any questions about this, definitely drop them down in the comments below. Now, the last thing I wanted to mention is that if you go to the description of this video, I've actually created a Notion page where you can go in and you can actually start to add this information for your business onto your own separate page. And it just makes it a lot easier for you to have everything in one place. You can use this month on month and just track all your data, all your metrics. And if you've got any questions about that as well, just let me know. But hopefully it makes it easier for you to stay on top of your cash indicators. So that's it from me. If you did find this video useful, make sure you use the resources down in the description and check out one of these videos.